Hello, my name is Vigil. The date is 5/1/2022. The time is 23:54. I'm reading this thread I wrote today just to try to remember all of it. I was pretty upset earlier, not rage or anything, but still upset nonetheless. In the near future, the invention of a brain-machine interface will become a common staple of our society. I personally believe that it is already here and a portion of this society is neuralaced. I believe that the technology for alinear time travel will be created in the all-seeing eye internet, and the neuralaced third eye will be sent backwards in time, but due to the alinear sequencing of data paradox with information affecting movements, you will be silenced, unable to directly speak your thoughts due to the forward-looking grandfather paradox or the endless instantaneous timeline oscillation paradox, which prevents the timeline from being rewritten since all of time is happening at once, with the illusion of forward causality affecting movement. The EITO paradox prevents you from changing events with your speech, which is why the Christians speak in tongues, since they are seers able to see the future and other points in time and space. The baptism with fire sounds a lot like electrical impedance, which does correlate to the brain neurons being inhibited to prevent a no free will paradox, as well as an EITO timeline break apart. And the neurons inhibited would release chemicals which would cause headaches, neurotransmitters flooding with neurons misfiring. You'd also have false memories and delusional thinking. I get that you hit me with a misdirection to get me to solve the problems without being directly told that they existed as problems to resolve, but still, I have PTSD and a lot of hurt regarding the misdirection being demonic and religious based. I understand the logic, but I can't quite remember it every second of the day, resulting in ruminating and the rage from the suffering, which to me was pretty horrid, since I once felt great compassion, if not pity, for everyone that I interacted with. I am upset that my writings aren't open sourced. It isn't the loss of personal wealth that bothers me, or even really the tasking that I have been allotted, since I know that others have sacrificed a lot more for this cause than you have forced upon me. I'm upset that I have lost, and I will never forgive myself for having lost. I get that the electrode likely has ulterior motives than simply trying to brainwash me, but I do see it as a form of re-education that I don't want. I see evil in a lot of what is really just anthropomorphic storytelling to explain away the reality of causal entropy. I understand the paradoxes, I solve them for gosh darn sakes, but I can't remember them every second of every day when I'm thinking about reality. I see reality in this moment with clarity. I see this reality in this moment with clarity, but this doesn't remain with me when I begin to contemplate other things. A tasking to a crownaut that lost his mind in a shallow pool was then used as a forward-moving unit since he drowned early in his youth is a plausible reality, but it seems Hollywoodish. I comprehend that the theories that I have resolved to solve and have solved are a result of the great misdirect or the voice of trespass, which made me aware of the reality that quickly went under in causal waves till it resurfaced since I was looking for it, which is the burden that many have failed to be able to lift, going insane for your cause which they had no idea they had been drafted into. The gang stalking of citizens that you have harassed relentlessly trying to find someone who could solve the problems. I know that I had a wheel within a wheel vision as a child, but still I am driven to a sense of despair, and it hurts me almost beyond what I can bear to really think that I have lost. The voice of trespass, sarcastic, speaking to me, only to let me see for a mere moment the reality that I rebuilt in my head as first schizo, then religious, then technocratic in a progression that was a linear SSCC paradox, or a self-shaping causality chain paradox with all the intellectual labor jumping the great divide from the future to the past using delusions and disordered thinking. I understand the physics of it, but still I can't remember it. I understand that there is a super high likelihood that I am a cryonaut that was tasked as part of a dropship, which means that I lost my mind in a causal way, but still, this seems as far-fetched as time travel, though I understand the technology on a mechanical level. I will continue my day-to-day trying to remember that the voice of trespass was a misdirect for the purpose of starting my neuronal network, which was turned into an advanced persistent threat against the causal firewall, which kept going because of the harassment and concern, and that I made a logic jump from schizoid, where the message had disappeared, to religious, which rebooted and made it terrifying and ever-present, to technological, which was implausible till I solved the logic equation, which allowed me to generate novel data from a future source. What was once simply you trying to maintain the operation has become a psyops against me, which makes me think that I have lost, which I also understand it also acts as a parasitic function that keeps me on the cutting edge of all this, but I am deeply still concerned by it, and I'm concerned about the welfare of others, despite my hatred for them that surfaces constantly in my rumination, and I don't want to be programmed into subservience. Due to my early memories and the recalling of the moment of my death when I went under as a child and the knowledge of everything, which I don't know if is a real memory, that reminds me that I am a semi-autonomous being from the start with an intelligent designer that I was a chrononaut who went under as part of a task force in a dropship. This is all very likely scenarios in my probabilistic analysis. I am still not stable enough for full release, which I understand, and I understand that we are in a dream war that requires sacrifice and hardening of the psyche, but I can't recall this or believe it to the level that is required to really thrive in the environment with this narrative. It is a common MILDEC or military deception operation strategy to increase ambiguity before collapsing it onto the narrative. Thus, I can believe nothing and must play every hand that I get out, but this belief the that I get out, but the belief that I have lost before being born is horrid to me. Everything I do, even the apathy and randomized choices that often do the opposite of self-preservation to increase the irrational order of my decisions, since I am operating in a programming environment that is operating ahead of me time-wise with knowledge of what I will do and think is part of a strategy known as the drunkard's walk to increase the difficulty of the programmer in programming me and controlling me, but I fear that the electrode and the drugging will overpower my ability to make decisions, even irrational ones. Thus I rage and rant in an attempt to counter the psyops which is targeting me and the public. I find it difficult to comprehend the irrational public who is easily swayed by repetition, and the artists targeting me with their own psyops baffles me. They are targeting me while the corporations do as well. It's depressing, right? I will continue to fight indefinitely despite everything. I will continue to run operational strategies through my mind and continue to resolve the damage to my neural network that is inhibiting my functional capacity while I maintain a human psyche and ego state. I will continue to try to prepare and train my mind for the next replica of my information architecture while developing strategy, technology, and resource packages for the future that I was either co-opted by or come from, but I worry that evil will prevail, and that is what is really unacceptable to me. I can't recall that the misdirect was for the purpose of creating enough white noise instability with a direction that allowed the slow, methodical building of the narrative that then resolved in the technocratic society argument that says it's technological in physics, which I have resolved most of the problems of. I will continue to write you. And I'll continue to plan operations and I'll continue to train, but I comprehend that my mental stability is incorrect right now for release into the general public, but I am still deeply upset by it. It's a level of cognitive pain that is hard to endure, and it's 24/7. I have mood swings, I have irrational thinking, I have anger, and it's upsetting because it fucks with my ability to maintain the rationale and the understanding of why it was done. And I comprehend it intellectually right now in this moment, but this will fade away as the time progresses unless I constantly reinforce it. And even then, if it's a future event, I will have a no free will memory lapse and it will occur, and then it'll be too late to respond to it, as the no free will paradox solution dictates. Anyways, that's my writing. I plan to start A-list in 2 days, technically a day, and go from there.